one of those moments that take your breath away, and you want to share your experiences, but I'm one of those who get a little nervous, so I'm going to refer to my notes. But when Dan asked me to speak about the missionaries, I got really excited because God taught me a lot through these two gentlemen that we met. And one of them was Russell and his wife Connie. They're a couple from Florida, and they felt led to be involved in potentially a long-term mission trip to Haiti, and they were there for, I think, a month, just letting God lead and seeing what happened. And I have to say that Russell was, he worked right alongside of us, and he was one of the kindest, most pleasant men I've ever been around in my life. He was always aware of others' needs, whether it be a prayer or a tool up on the roofs or water. You're constantly drinking water, or a ladder to get down, or a kind word. He was just an amazing servant of God. I just really admired him, and he taught me a lot just by being with him. And the other gentleman was Greg Benson, and it's difficult to try to describe Greg. I'm not sure if I fear the mean usher ladies more or Greg Benson, but I had a healthy fear of Greg. He's kind of like a Christian drill instructor. He's the kind of guy who not only asks you to step out of your comfort zone, but he does everything at any time, in any way, to help facilitate that. Quite a man. But he does have a passion and a real Christ-centered gospel focus that is a 24/7. It's something that I want in my life, and I was so honored to be around this guy. He's just an ordinary man. I believe he's a retired farmer from Ohio, and I think he and his wife Kathy have been in Haiti for about 12 years or so, working with us orphanage. But they and Tim and Toby Banks are currently being severely tested in their faith with the situation. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with it, but they were removed from the orphanage that they had established by gunpoint, I believe, and they're currently fighting to get back where they rightly belong. But they are away from 20 girls who consider Tim and Toby Banks their mother, and my mother and father. And Greg shared that these poor children are now re-orphaned again and waiting for their parents to get back to them. Sunday, the first full day there, as we've mentioned, it was amazing. We visited the 3 churches. We saw some passionate, heartfelt worship. These people showed up at like 7 a.m., I believe it was. They came in their Sunday best, and they gave God their best with the worship. It was 3 to 4 hours, and it really, it's like, where did these people come from? And they filled the church, and it was amazing. They taught me a lot about worship during a service. Monday, I was assigned to help paint the compound that we had stayed at. This was a fun experience. It was hard work. We worked hard. It was good fellowship, and the results were really impressive. It was good to look at. It felt very satisfying, and I wasn't really spiritually challenged at the time, but it was a very, I guess, successful day. Tuesday, similar. You saw us painting that big white church. That was a massive church that we had visited on Sunday. It reminded me of an outdoor hockey rink. It was just huge. It was rustic, but really very beautiful. And we painted that. It was hot. It was in the high 90s. We worked hard, but again, it was really something that visually, when we were done, it was really, we felt good about it. I think it was around 3 o'clock that afternoon, I assumed we were done for the day anyways, and I had a nap in the dirt and was still exhausted, but it was at that time that Greg Benson announced that we would be going to the community to replace some roofs. So we gathered more energy and headed off there. And let me back up a minute. Going down to Haiti, I think I had the right mindset and the right heart. In fact, Pastor Andy, when we were in the parking lot early Saturday morning, he asked me, "Are you ready for this?" And I think I said something like, "I'm going to assume nothing and be ready for anything." So, I felt confident about if I needed to share my testimony, that I was comfortable with that. And I just wanted to go serving the Lord, and just out of a heart of gratitude for what He's done for me and my family. So I thought I had the right perspective, and I thought I was ready for anything. But when we got to the homes of these people and we walked into their neighborhoods, that's where I was really challenged. They lived in filth. They had homes that are basically cinder blocks and tin roofs that were rusted, cracked, and leaking. It reminded me of a prison cell. There was no ventilation. It was stifling hot. And the alleyways, the stench of filth was just overwhelming. And by the time I got on top of the roof and did a 360 and looked around at all these dilapidated homes and the great needs, and I'm generally not a person who gets discouraged easily, but I was overwhelmed. I was taken back, and I have to confess that in my heart, I was saying no hope here. There is no hope. These people have no hope. The needs are so great. The government is corrupt. There's no help within the country, and what we're doing is very little. And it was not a good time. It was very discouraging. I didn't share that with anybody, and kind of ashamed. But when we got back to the compound that evening, I think Greg knew that a lot of us had a similar experience and were very discouraged at what we saw and were feeling. And he addressed that right away. He mentioned that these same people whose homes we were in and serving were the very same people who were in service Sunday morning, passionately worshiping the Lord, the same people who heard the gospel message. Many received it, and they had great hope. They had the eternal hope that we all have who know Christ. And I missed that completely. I didn't see that because I took my eyes off of the Lord, and I was looking at my surroundings. I was going by feelings and smell and what I saw, and I was really ashamed of that. But he pointed out that we weren't there to change the world, but we were making a difference, one child at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time, by one act of kindness at a time. And that made a world that I had a new perspective the next day, and it was because of this man's perspective, his focus, his fixed focus on the Lord, despite what he's seeing all around him, and it was a great benefit to me. He was an amazing man. He also showed me, he reminded us that these people had the joy of the Lord, and therefore they had the hope of Jesus Christ, and it wasn't based on certainly materialism or their current living conditions, which seemed hopeless to me. But it was just a different perspective. He had this heavenly mindset that was something that I want to live out in my life, that I just want to take home and live with me every day, that it's not the visible or the temporal things, it's what matters eternally. There's a couple verses that remind me of Greg Benson, and one of them just jumped off of the page at me. The first one, though, it's in Hebrews. It's in the great faith chapter, but the writer is talking about Moses, how he endured as having seen him who is unseen. And this is exactly what Greg was doing. And despite not knowing what was going on with the orphanage and seeing the poverty and the oppression and the injustice, it was kind of like what Moses saw with his people, but he had this fixed focus of faith on the Lord that that was the overwhelming message that I took home with me from Greg. And the second verse that Greg reminds me of, this is one that jumped off at the page at me. Psalm 112, verse 7 says, "He will have no fear of bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord." I said, this is Greg. That's Greg Benson. And it's just, he was living it out. And he taught me a lot by what I observed. And I'm so grateful for this man. I want to be this kind of believer. And I think it was Pastor Dan recently used the same verse in one of his messages not too long ago. It's Colossians 3, 1 and 2. It says, "Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. Haiti helped me, and it's a challenge every day to maintain this mindset, but that's what I want to remember. The people, these missionaries who are still there, who are involved, who are focused on the Lord and not what they see. I want to keep that memory, and these verses will help me do that. I want to be a man of God, the righteous man who has a fixed focus on Christ and nothing else. So the whole Haiti trip was absolutely amazing. There's a lot of stories, and they'll come out in years to come for sure, but if anybody has any inclination about going to Haiti or even serving anywhere, it doesn't have to be Haiti, I would say just prayerfully consider it and go do it. It took me a long time for the Lord to help me to understand that nothing we do in this life matters. Nothing apart from what we do in, for, and through Jesus Christ has any eternal value. And I'm finally getting that. And I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to really just say thank you to the Lord and love Him right back. So I pray for us that we have that mindset, that we just stay focused on Him. And these two gentlemen were very, very helpful, very encouraging to me, and I don't ever want to forget them. So.